Hello, everyone. My name is Amber Sweeney, and I'm the Vice President of Customer Solutions at PartnerEyes. I'm very excited to be leading this partner panel and to be joined by some of the most recognizable publisher names in the industry. With me today is Jeremy Aronson, Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Upsell It, Alexis Caldwell, Vice President of Global Partnerships at RewardStyle, Camilla Cho, Head of E-commerce at Vox Media, Magali Darling, Vice President of Retail and Brand Solutions at RetailMeNot, and Lauren Newman, Senior Vice President of Revenue at SkinLinks. Welcome, everyone, and thank you again for taking the time out of your busy days to join me. What I wanted to do is start the discussion by really setting the stage for what we're focusing on in today's session, the role of partnerships at every phase in the buyer journey. Historically, one of the biggest challenges in performance channels has been that performance models were built on a last-click attribution model. So this meant for many years, tracking mechanisms didn't allow for any attribution beyond last click. And this presented some real challenges when it came to properly rewarding influencers and content creators who tend to live in discovery phases. There wasn't an appropriate means to be rewarded for their conversion contributions. What's great is that in today's industry, we've evolved the technology to account for all of these other touch points, enabling the proper reward and compensation for every partner type. So let's open it up to our expert panel of partners who may represent different yet equally critical components of the partnership ecosystem. All right, so it goes without saying that the last year has really handed marketers some unprecedented challenges. So our first question is a 2-for-1, and I'd like to hear from everyone and get your take on it. Over the last year, what would you classify as the single biggest shift you saw happening in the affiliate partnership channel? And as a partner, how did this shift affect you? Jeremy, do you want to open things up?
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to first thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to be here and to be on the panel. For us, I think the obvious answer is, how do we meet new publishers? Strong partnerships are, they're normally forged in person, and people working from home on their cell phones make that a little bit more difficult to do, and no conferences. It's great to have platforms like this now where we can, engage with people and have these types of, situations. But we had to get a bit unique in our approach, right? And how do we do that? It's hard to replace the real thing and forging those partnerships. While merchants look, to have new partners and to meet their goals, I'm sure like other people on this panel, they've created partnerships with agencies and networks like yourself. As for the shift, it was a moving target for us. We used a lot of things like Slack and other channels to really engage with our, our partners a bit more to continue to build those bonds that we've created.
Thanks, Jeremy. How about Camilla? How about you guys? What has been the biggest shift for you?
Lots of shifts and challenges last year. I would say one of the biggest kind of challenges on the publisher end was just kind of dealing with all of the sudden changes in rates, ranging from merchants wiping away commissions altogether to all of a sudden, ramping up rates by 50% plus. So just that volatility was pretty challenging to keep up with. The unpredictability of it all, it really just kept us on the edge of our seats and required us to be extra nimble and react quickly. And it just reinforced the whole notion of never having all our eggs in one basket. Part of this meant that we needed to develop stronger relationships with key retailers so that they see the value and impact of our content in the purchase journey, and really reinforce the quality audience that we are able to drive. And I would say lastly, it also emphasized the flexibility we needed on the back end of our CMS for us to be able to easily swap out networks and retailers on all of our commerce pages when some of these unpredictable changes would take place.
Thank you. That's some really great insight, especially with needing to diversify who you're working with, as well as being nimble. I think that was the single greatest shift for a lot of affiliate platforms too, is just being able to move with the day-to-day consumer behavior, as well as the changes in the technology, and how our partners could react as well. So thank you for that. That's really great insight. How about you, Magali?
So for us, from a consumer perspective, the biggest shifts we saw, well, there were several. There were psychographic and demographic shifts on our platforms that we had to address and really help our partners address those needs of those folks. So for example, 65 plus, that demographic increased dramatically because in most cases they're in-store shoppers, right? And now they're shopping online. So how do you address that demographic that varies very differently than the millennials, for example, that a lot of retailers are trying to cater to, whether that's education on how certain promotions work, making it easy, etc. So we had to work through that too. We also kind of saw a tale of two significant shoppers with significant growth. One, a group that needed an offer or deal to make the purchase just due to financial hardship, and how to get those deals in front of those folks. And then a group that was largely unaffected by the pandemic from like a revenue perspective, but was deal seeking at a higher rate than we'd ever seen before, so more affluent. And there it was more about inspiration and branded content and how to bring things to life that they would typically see in store. So we just had to cater to different audiences that were growing very quickly and helping our retailers keep up. In addition to, overall, we just saw consumers willing to try new brands that maybe they hadn't considered in the past. And that was just because of how aggressive the landscape became from a promotions and deal perspective. And then the expectation of free shipping, that actually moved the needle for so many retailers, where in the past it was important, but getting your stuff on time or not having to pay for it because you're used to going to in-store to get it actually was a huge promotion kind of shift that we got our retailers to kind of buy into where they could. So yeah, it was this idea of losing customers and gaining customers on a daily basis, how to keep them satisfied, knowing that there was so much out there for them to choose from, and then catering to new demographics that weren't heavily shopping online.
Yeah, that's also some great insight. Something that I hadn't thought about is the older generation now becoming online. And now that in today's environment, as we're starting to open up a little bit, how do you keep those consumers now online, extending the lifetime value for your advertiser partners?
Right. I think that's where we are now, right? It's like all of this happened, and now how do you retain these folks that are new to your brand or just new to online?
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. How about you, Lauren?
Well, I agree with Camilla in terms of diversification, because I think for a long time, publishers have been very reliant on the big three, Google for search, Facebook for content distribution, and Amazon for affiliate. And for a long time, we have been telling publishers the need to diversify away from that, because I don't think a dependence on any of the big three is a good place to be. And I think they proved that very quickly at the start of the pandemic last year, and left a lot of great partners in the lurch. And so that really led to a prioritization for publishers to look outside of Amazon and really grow those strategic partnerships in a non-Amazon focus. And so that was one of the big things that we focused on at Skimlinks, was to introduce partners to alternatives of where they can link to the same products to different retailers who would pay them even more commission and who would have just as high a conversion rate. And so that became a huge priority for a lot of publishers. And then the ability to be nimble, to be able to swap out those links and to be able to say, okay, well, let's look at a SKU level, product level, and make some very quick decisions on who's also going to pay us the most commission. Because during the pandemic, obviously a lot of companies were changing rates. They were pausing programs. They were going to 0% just given the demand. And there was also a lot of inventory constraints. So even if publishers wanted to link to a specific product, it may not have been available. So how do they quickly, change their content strategy and change the retailer that they're linking to? So we also built a dynamic product that was able to very quickly swap out the retailer and make sure that we were still allowing the publisher to monetize and take advantage of that product and that retailer, while also thinking through the lens of diversification, which I think is really the number one priority for every major publisher now.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see that, along with Camilla, Skimlinks was able to be nimble and create that technology so
Yeah.
quickly?
Yeah, we started it in March and it was ready by June. So it sort of forced innovation, which is
Right.
a scary place to be, but also a great place to be. I think we launched and iterated on more products last year than in the last 3. So it was actually a really great moment for our company to kind of put us to the test and to figure out how to pivot very quickly and provide the service that our partners needed.
Absolutely. Supporting your partners is the most important part of the job right now for you guys. So especially in a time when they didn't know if they were going to continue seeing revenue coming in, to see you guys act so quickly is just a testament to how great of a company Skimlinks is.
Yeah, thank you.
How about you, Alexis?
Yeah, the big shift that we really have seen over the last year has been just the massive acceleration in people shopping online. It's a trend that we've been seeing for the last 15, 20 years now, but really we're starting to see, we just saw a massive increase in overall people shopping online. And so with that, we also had our brand partners, many of whom brick and mortar stores obviously had to close. And so they were left without their sales force that they use in store on the ground, who help consumers make decisions and make and actually make sales. And really they pivoted. We were able to partner with our brands to help them pivot to utilize influencers as that distributed sales force in place of their brick and mortar sales force in a way that they hadn't really thought about doing it before. They were able to use influencer content for sales, obviously, but also instead of being able to do photo shoots in person for new product, they shipped it out to influencers to actually create on-site product as well. So really, it was kind of a natural shift in terms of the pivoting to using influencers to replace that sales force, because they were already there. Their content was already being created. They already had built all these incredible audiences, and it really was kind of set and ready to go for our brand partners.
Yeah, that's really interesting, especially how you had talked about, a lot of the brick and mortar stores, the closing, and how did the advertiser partners shift those budgets, and how did that affect what they were doing from a process standpoint? So being able to completely change how they were working with the influencers, again, is great to see how nimble not only you as publishers are and partners are, but as nimble as the advertisers were as well, and how everybody can kind of shift and make sure they're supporting each other. All right, so the next question really has to do with the concept of partnership. So it's really taken off over the past couple of years, and I'd like to go around now and ask, from each of your perspectives, is there anything about the channel or your category that you feel some marketers really don't fully understand, or any misconceptions that we can set the record straight on for each of you? Magali, how about we start with you?
Sure. I think one of the biggest misconceptions is the funnel, the shopping journey. The funnel was created, I don't know, 40 or 50 years ago, and shopping behavior has really changed since then. But this idea that every shopper goes down a funnel is incorrect, right? And so I think for marketers, of course, it is easier to bucket platforms and channels, because planning that way is much easier. But that's not how people shop, right? People don't say, I'm in the discovery phase, so I'm going to read branded content, and then I'm going to go to Retell Me Not, and I'll make my last click there to convert. Like, no one shops like that. It's actually a flywheel. It's a cycle. It's circular. It is not a funnel. A funnel is one shopping journey, but there are several, right? And so I think what's tough about coupons and deals, it feels like the perception is we're just sit squarely in the middle of the bottom, and all these other things happened, and then right at the end we're there to save the day with a deal, which could happen, but it is certainly not what happens all the time. And so because of that, marketers don't necessarily leverage our channel to its fullest. because there are people in discovery phases that are also influenced by a deal at that phase, or just the way that we're going to position it as value driven over potentially another brand, and that helps them make a decision. So I think just the idea that everyone shops this one way has been really tough, and because it's not actually happening that way. And we really try to insert our influence throughout the cycle. Because if you think about it, someone who is an enthusiast, so let's say loves shoes, their shopping journey is different than someone who's in market for shoes for a specific event. It doesn't go like this in a funnel. They're coming in at different stages, and it's about being there with the right message to get them to continue the shopping journey. So I think that's what we try to do on our platform and educate on, with data points to show that it's really not just kind of, I'm in cart and now I need a promotion, because that's just very antiquated as far as how people shop today. Yeah.
Right. You've got that taboo associated with you being within the coupon space, when really the customer journey, like you said, it's not that linear approach anymore. It doesn't start up here,
Right.
go here. It could be even outside of that flywheel, there might be different touch points outside of that you haven't even thought about.
Right. There are more touch points and mediums today than ever before. Right. We're getting bombarded left and right. So to think that the shopping journey just is that linear and hasn't evolved in 50 years with all the new media, is it's not going to help get your brand in the right places if we keep planning this way.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. How about you, Camilla?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting about kind of rethinking the funnel. I think what we're noticing on our sites is we still kind of think of this funnel, but we see a lot of activity where people are going up and down the funnel. It's not this neat funnel where you start up here and work your way down, but like you may have been at the discovery stage and you're almost to a purchase, but then you see something else somewhere else or on social, and you may go straight up to the top again. And so we see this kind of like much more of an erratic behavior, which has been interesting. So I just wanted to kind of comment on that because I thought that was an interesting way to view things, more on a flywheel type of a framework. But going back to the concept of partnerships, I would just like to, I guess, share here that, what we often see is advertisers and merchants kind of treating publishers all kind of a one size fits all and not really knowing our sites. And I think it's just important to remind marketers that editorial content from sites like ours, whether it's The Strategist, The Cut, The Verge, Vulture, or Eater, the content is most effective when they are organic. Thus, being overly prescriptive is A, not going to be all that welcome by our editorial teams in most instances, and B, will likely dilute the editorial impact. And I guess this is all kind of to say what works on one publication is not necessarily going to work on others. There's just so many nuances in the editorial voice and the tones of each of our sites. And oftentimes what could work on The Strategist will not work on The Cut and vice versa, even though on the surface people see them as somewhat similar. I think that's kind of my main takeaway there on that topic.
And that's why the relationship aspect is so important too. I'm sure,
Yes.
Camilla, is being able to have a one-to-one relationship either with an account manager or at a brand itself, so you can really target the demographic and the audience appropriately.
Totally, 100%, 100%.
Thank you. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I can speak to our channel in general. Because we sit on the site, we are engaging users while they're on the site. It's, the misconception there is that, we're taking the last sale, the last click, etc. But kind of your point, Amber, is it's been super important for us is the fact that tracking is changing. And I'm hoping it's going to continue to evolve, right? Where everyone in the funnel, whether it's linear or a pinwheel or wherever it may be, that everyone's getting the credit that they deserve, right? And so we've kind of evolved with that as well in terms of how do we track that ourselves? How do we pass that data back to the networks to show where the different touch points were in that funnel and who was responsible for what. And so we've developed the way to, maybe engage with users in a specific way, suppress certain traffic sources, make it so that, we really engage at the right place and the right time and making sure, again, everyone is kind of getting credit for that.
Yeah. Alexis, how about what Reward Style has seen?
Yeah, well, I definitely agree with what Magali shared in terms of the funnel just being like not a funnel and all the shoppers all over the place. I would say probably the biggest kind of misconception in general around influencers as partners is that they don't actually drive sales and they're just for branding and awareness. And frankly, like, they do drive sales. And that's the great thing about integrating affiliate tracking with influencer marketing is we're able to actually track and measure the success of those engagements. And brands can actually really prove out their investment beyond, likes and shares and comments and impressions, which are great from a PR perspective, sure, but also what it really means to drive performance and top line revenue as well.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I think that is definitely a misconception, especially when we're talking to our advertiser partners and they talk about brand awareness and it's really great, but I have a bottom line that I need to make sure and try and tell them, you can work with influencers in a certain way where you are driving sales and not just brand awareness. So I think that's a great call out, Alexis. Thank you. And how about you, Lauren?
Well, I think one of the biggest misconceptions from marketers is the difference between PR and affiliate. We often hear from a lot of brands, well, we're not going to work with that publisher on an affiliate basis because our PR team's in touch with their editorial team. And I think, marketers have to realize that publishers' content is their most valuable real estate. So your PR team should be working in tandem with your affiliate team. They should be absolutely promoting all of their products and their launches and gifting things to editors so they can test it and try it and come up with their own original review. But then they should absolutely still reward the publisher for driving sales. Those two things are not separate and distinct. They go hand in hand. And there is no such thing at this point as free content. And marketers need to realize that, because if they are going to be pushing their products and their PR teams are going to be engaging with their editors, they do have to realize that the editors are also going to want to get rewarded for driving traffic, awareness, and conversion to that retailer. And so the two should be a dual strategy and not one in exchange for the other.
That's a great call out. We've been having a lot of discussions with our brand partners and telling them they need to start to break down those silos, that PR and affiliate should be working hand in hand, because that's where the greatest relationships are. And that's where you build the biggest relationships as well.
Of course. And editors can fall in love with products and want to talk about those products organically, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't get rewarded for the traffic that they drive. So, right. It should be seen as an additional halo effect. Get the editor, love your product, review your product, give you dedicated real estate against it, but then also make sure the publisher is motivated to drive as much traffic to that article as possible and distribute that article in as many places as possible. So, they really do need to work together and not be seen as siloed businesses.
Right. And on the flip side, Lauren, just because you're working in an affiliate capacity doesn't mean you can guide the content or tell the editors how they should be speaking to that content.
Correct. Right. That's why PR is still a very important function, right? Affiliate's never going to replace PR, but right. PR only helps the halo effect against affiliate. Because an editor can fall in love with a product, but if the publisher doesn't think that that's a retailer that's going to convert for them, they're not going to invest against that piece of content. So it kind of works against them. So it's really important that marketers see content as real estate that's monetizable, and that they're making sure they can get as much real estate and as big of a footprint as they possibly can by motivating them at all channels.
Yeah, all right. One more question before I move on to some more targeted questions for individuals. How have your growth goals evolved in the last 3 to 6 months as we move towards some sense of normalcy? And is this something you would typically communicate to your brands that you work with? Jeremy, do you want to start out?
Yeah, it's definitely a moving target, right?
Right.
Before, where we would plan a year out, have our goals, know what we've done year over year, etc. That's all out the window. So, taking a look at that, we really start looking at that quarterly now, right? And even maybe less than quarterly, and what's happening. You've seen this, artificial increase in sales and even new business kind of come in. And while I think a lot of that will continue, I think a lot more people are going to be shopping online more often than they used to. I think you may see the same thing too in terms of, how new partnerships are formed and where they're forming as well. So, for us, it's just keeping our ear to the ground and seeing what's happening and how do we continue to evolve with that.
Thank you. Alexis, how about you?
Definitely. I think really for us, from a goal perspective, our main focus is making sure we're partnered with our brands to ensure that they're hitting their goals, and really kind of working with our brands to understand what their expectations are for this year, for this quarter, and for what they have coming down the pipeline, whether it's a new line launch or a big sale that they have coming up, so that we can really align all of our data that we have over 125,000 influencers to understand who will be best to cast and promote those opportunities for the brand so that they can best achieve their goals. I mean, overall, from a goal perspective as a business, 2020 was like a bananas year for us, which was really exciting, and I think that we have to be humble because it obviously wasn't for a lot of other businesses, but we're really focused on ensuring that our brand partners are hitting their goals and continuing to see double and triple digit growth even this year against tough comps.
Thank you. How about you, Magali? How have your growth goals evolved?
We're focusing on a couple things. The first is really continuing to integrate editorial content and deal content on our platform. They've been very separate in the past. We saw triple-digit growth to our Real Deal blog over the past year and a half. So for us, we know that it's valuable. We know that our consumers are coming to us to not only understand the best deal, but to also discover new products, new deals, price comparison, shop, etc. So it's something that has been very siloed that we're now going to merge on our platform. And that's really just based off of consumer demand and letting us know that that's what they want. They don't mind doing a little reading and hearing our perspective while also giving them a great deal associated to that. This next one is we're just gearing up for omni-channel shopping again. In-store really took a hiatus for a while, and we're seeing consumer demand increase every day. Every day a new state doesn't have to wear masks, etc. And we literally see foot traffic increase overnight. And we have to be ready for it because we haven't worked on in-store for about a year. And now consumers, it seems, are going to want to shop where they want to shop. And then we have to have deals that make sense and don't really force a consumer one way or the other, but actually available for them based on their comfort level and what they're planning on doing. So gearing up our products to fulfill that need.
Great, thank you. How about you, Lauren?
Well, I mean, we're in a unique position that, the more our publishers grow and our merchants grow, the more that we grow. So we're very upfront about our goals and their goals because we're aligned in the same mission. So I think there's full transparency on both sides there, which is really great. And so we're constantly strategizing on ways to get to that growth goal, right? So introducing our publishers to new merchants who are joining the affiliate space. We onboard about 1,000 new merchants a month. We're talking about new entrants to the category. I think one of the most exciting things that happened last year is people who we never thought would have affiliate programs do. And so making sure publishers know about that and they can link to that. And then also bringing a lot more publishers into the space. There's been so much pressure on direct and programmatic sales that affiliate has become a much more important sector of publishers as well. So publishers who I never thought would have affiliate programs are also joining the space. So, you know, rising tides lifts all boats, right? So bringing in really premium merchants, really premium publishers, and then building best-in-class products to make sure that everybody's linking to the right place, the right person, in the right environment.
That's a really good point, Lauren. We do see a lot of higher end retailers in the luxury space entering the affiliate channel within the past year, as well as a lot of our merchants who were solely content focused are now working more with deal and loyalty sites. So it's been a great shift to see how everybody, again, is being nimble and understanding that they have to change what they need to do in order to make sure that their consumers are getting what they need.
Yeah, and I think taking advantage of new categories too, like, you know, buy online, pick up in store.
Right.
So, you know, there's new ways to engage with retailers in a way that consumers never thought was possible and that publishers have not covered. So it brings an entirely new entrance to the category that has nowhere to go but grow.
Right. And Camilla, how have your growth goals changed?
Yeah, our growth goals remain aggressive this year, although as we can all attest, it is proving to be a tricky one to forecast. Q1 was super strong with people still very much stuck at home in the beginning of the year, shopping heavily online. I think starting around like early to mid-March, so for the past like 2 to 3 months is where we're starting to see some shifts in behavior. But that also points to growth potential too in categories like apparel and beauty and travel. Those are back. But there's downward pressure on categories that were doing really well during the height of the pandemic, like food and beverages and health. So, you know, it's a balancing act, and it's once again going back to that whole notion of being really nimble. But, you know, at Vox Media, we're investing, we're expanding, we're committed to this e-commerce affiliate business for the long haul. So despite, you know, what may be thrown our way and some blips here and there, we are building for some aggressive growth across multiple sites within our portfolio.
Thank you. All right, Jeremy, I have a few questions specifically for you. Upsella is often thought of as a partner that can re-engage consumers that have abandoned a brand site, but there are other levers that Upsella can pull to optimize across the consumer journey. Can you elaborate on what conversion optimization entails across the buyer journey and not just necessarily that the conversion point?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. We've done such a great job on really getting out there that we are an abandonment solution strategy, but it goes way beyond that. You know, while we've done a great job at doing that, we engage every part of the website, whether that's on entrance with emails or mobile numbers and collecting that information to, you know, creating what used to be anonymous users now into known users, and how do we then take that data through the rest of the journey. You know, we've also done a great job in the last couple of years of really doing a lot of in-page stuff with our product recommendations, being able to help our merchants increase their AOV, whether that be adding a new product to their cart or just getting them to add that first product to the cart. To, again, back to that, part of the lower part of the funnel in which we can really engage on abandonment, whether that's with email and getting them back in. But even another bigger one, which I'm starting to hear more and more, is working with merchants together to maybe start doing some cross-selling. And how do we kind of engage there? That's also one that we're hearing quite a bit about and we're getting involved with and helping with.
Okay, so it sounds like there's a lot of different solutions. Do you that there's certain challenges that you have when you're educating marketers on the role of your value for the solution?
Yeah, it's again getting us out of that pigeonhole of us being just abandonment, and how do we do that? And that just goes to the strength of our team and getting out there and engaging with the merchants and really kind of reselling our value to them and showing the success that we've had with other merchants. Okay, and how do you communicate that success and the strengths that you have with your merchants? Yeah, again, being on site, it's really about kind of the incrementality. I think Alexis was talking about that a little bit, and how do we show that our channel has that that incremental value, and kind of showing the reporting and our own internal reporting that we have to show that value.
Great. And then how do you see conversion optimization methods evolving in a post-COVID world?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of what we have been doing already. And that's really taking a look at that user journey and making it more tailored to them. I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that. So not just abandonment, but on-site. How do we take that on-site experience and every time that user comes back to the site, almost giving them that same experience they would have in store, right? Is going directly to what they want and what they're looking for. And so being able to kind of take some of that data that we've seen during this COVID time, because it's changed quite a bit in terms of where they're going, what they're doing, and how do we start using that data to build that funnel for them.
Sure, so it feels more personalized to the
Exactly.
each user and their experience.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much, Jeremy.
Yeah.
So Alexis, I'm going to turn some questions over to you now. Influencer measurement can be handled really in a myriad of ways, like honing in on engagement or followers accumulated, for example. And this is something that you had talked about earlier. When it comes to the intersection of influencer and affiliate marketing, impact on conversion more challenging. And again, this is something that you touched on before. How has peak performance of affiliate marketing impacted the world of influencers?
Yeah, it's definitely impacted it a number of ways. So, I mean, like I mentioned before, it's really important in terms of measurement for the value of the channel. If you can't measure it, you can't optimize towards it, and that's really key. And really how we work with our partners in terms of building out new strategies and campaigns for them. But really, I think that affiliate has really helped kind of bridge that gap in terms of the kind of next steps for growth for our partners.
So you had just mentioned bridging the gap.
I lost my train of thought.
Okay. That's all right. So you just mentioned bridging the gap for marketers. How have you helped educate and really get marketers to understand the role and the impact of influencers from that top of funnel to conversion?
So really, we partner with our brands to get them to recognize influencers as a key strategy, and influencers themselves kind of act as influencers to other influencers. So there's this sort of halo effect that happens when an influencer starts talking about a brand. Other influencers see that influencer, and we've sort of trained them to know that if they want to get on the radar to get paid by that brand in the future, they should start talking about that brand. And affiliate is really kind of key to that, because it allows those publishers who weren't necessarily cast by that brand or paid by that brand out of the gate to be able to participate and to link organically to that brand in cases where they wouldn't have otherwise, or they wouldn't have been incentivized to otherwise. So I think that's really key in terms of kind of being able to measure and also creating opportunity for growth for the program.
Great. I mean, what does the annex of influencers in traditional affiliate look like? So again, early you had mentioned, everybody sees influencers as being separate. What does the intersection really look like from your perspective? And what are some of the similarities? And on the flip side, what are some of the differences?
Definitely. So I think kind of one of the key pieces for influencer and affiliate is because we're able to offer the affiliate fee in addition to the flat fee, and we're doing it at scale with hundreds of thousands of influencers. We're able to kind of drive down rates in a lot of cases for influencers from what they would get working directly with the brand. And we're also, because of the measurement piece, able to identify really how that individual influencer performs. We know how they convert, we know what their AOVs are, we know what brands they actually perform for. We also are able to understand when an influencer has 1 million followers, they may be great for branding and awareness, but if a brand wants to like sell out, there may be an influencer with 60,000 followers who can sell way more products as a result. So those are insights that we have. But in terms of affiliate and influencer, I really see them as being inextricably linked. You need affiliate tracking in order to really understand the value of influencer investment, because influencer is becoming such a large part of key budgets and really marketing line items. It's important to be able to measure beyond just those clicks and impressions and likes and comments.
Yeah, there were some really great insights in there. And I think going back to what Camilla had mentioned earlier, it's really understanding that an influencer is an individual and they do have an audience. So understanding what that audience likes and having the brands understand the influencers from that perspective and not just sending a bunch of product out to a bunch of people, it does make a difference when it comes to not only the brand awareness, but to the conversions as well. And one last question. Did you see any COVID impact on the overlap between affiliate and influencers? So on the PartnerEye side, we saw an influx of demand for influencer and social media applications coming to us. Did you see reward style, and what do you anticipate in the future?
Totally. So we saw a huge influx in terms of influencer applications. We're an application-only platform, so that was huge. We also saw influencers really needing to pivot their content. So a lot of them last year, pre-March, had planned content for like they're going on spring break with their family, and all of a sudden that content wasn't relevant anymore, and so they had to pivot to talking about my staycation in my backyard with my family, or instead of talking about spring dresses, it was how to work out at home, and loungewear searches were like quadruple digit growth in our app. So it was really crazy. And I think we're really continuing to see that because people that weren't shopping online before have now been shopping online and have really experienced kind of the benefits of shopping online. We're seeing them even as states open up and people are able to shop in stores again. We're still seeing the trend of people shopping online more now because they've been exposed to it.
Right. Thank you so much, Alexis. Now, Camilla, I have a couple questions for you. You had mentioned this. Publishing has really only embraced the use of affiliate as a monetization source in recent years. So from your perspective, what was the driver ultimately in this uptick?
Yeah, from what we've seen since launching The Strategist, which is New York Magazine's kind of flagship e-commerce, which we launched 5 years ago when it was nowhere as crowded of a space as it is now, with practically every publisher embracing some form of affiliate as a monetization revenue source. I think for brands and publishers that already have some level of a trusted relationship with their users, this is a really nice kind of area to explore. And I think part of the reason that we're seeing people embracing it more and more, I see three main factors here. One, first and foremost, many publishers are looking to diversify their revenue source beyond traditional online advertising. So rather than being overly reliant on ad sales, this provides a really nice alternative. Second, there's not like huge barriers to entry. You don't need massive capital. You don't need big, infrastructure to get into this area. You need really great writers and editors, and you need a CMS, and you need to forge some relationships with affiliate networks and so forth. Probably get an Amazon Associates account, and you could be well on your way to at least testing in this area. So it's something that is fairly easy to at least experiment and see what you can do there. I would say to do this right and actually scale it, I think that's a whole different ballgame, and that is difficult and does require serious investment. But I think if people want to try it out, this is a fairly easy area to explore. And then thirdly, e-commerce affiliate, it provides a really healthy margin, better than most other business lines for publishers. So that's another kind of appealing factor here at play that has led to such a boon for the affiliate space amongst publishers.
So as a content partner, how do you best explain the value you bring to the buyer journey?
Yeah, so we bring, I would say, we're bringing value in various different ways. So I'm going to use the funnel, even though it might be somewhat antiquated, but our content is really hitting at all stages of the funnel. And we do a really great job in two kind of main buckets. One is at that discovery stage. And so we are bringing to light for our users products and brands they may have never heard of, they may have never really experienced or had any sort of exposure to. And so our editors love kind of bringing this to light and helping people discover new products and new brands. And so thus we work closely with a lot of small, medium-sized businesses and a lot of D2Cs in this area. And then on the other hand, we are creating a lot of evergreen content for people that are further down that funnel and are ready to make a purchase, and they're squarely in the funnel already looking for a specific product. You know, I need an air conditioning unit right now. I need new pair of hiking boots. You know, I need to buy a new vacuum or wireless headphones or whatever it may be. And so helping users to make sense of the vast world of e-commerce, I think many people, especially those that are new to the online space, which has been accelerated as we all talked about here with the pandemic, people don't want to be spending their time, you know, paging through pages and pages of Google search results or Amazon search results. And they want to know, help me just narrow it down, help me figure out what is best for me, for my budget, for my taste, for my preferences. And so we do provide that useful content for people that are a little bit further down that funnel to provide the useful tidbits of information to help make their purchasing decision efficiently. And then lastly, we're adding, I mean, at the end of the day, this is content that's also supposed to make shopping fun. And we actually really want to make shopping a fun process. And so we do our best, especially the strategist editorial team, to create content that is entertaining and fun for people to read, even if you may not be necessarily looking for anything to buy. And so we generate a lot of content pieces that we know may not necessarily monetize or convert, but we want to bring those stories about interesting trends that we're seeing out there, the backstories on certain products and how it came to be, you know, highlighting celebrities and the weird, quirky purchase shopping habits that they may have. And so across all these different types of content that we bring, we have this relationship with our users that allows them to keep coming back to our site for whatever shopping, whether it's squarely shopping related or somewhat adjacent shopping related, coming back to our sites to read our content and trust what they're reading with us.
Thank you so much, Camilla, for those insights. Magali, I have a couple questions for you. So you had mentioned earlier some of the misconceptions about what Retail Me Not can provide. What mechanisms or levers are available with Retail Me Not for brands looking for value at every phase of the buyer journey? You had mentioned a couple earlier, but we'd love to hear some more.
Yeah, it basically falls into 3 buckets, but none of it actually matters unless there's a measurement plan in place that makes sense. I think the biggest problem with our channel, specifically with deals and coupons, is just the perception of last click or whatever it may be. So for us, it's about coming up with a plan that aligns with your goals, hits your goals, but how are we measuring that? because most advertisers are going in with a perception of something. It's meant to do this, it's meant to do that. But what are the metrics that actually align with that, right? And so I think that's where we focus a ton on first. After understanding their goals, it's how are we going to measure this in a way that makes sense for what your actual goal is. We will hear a lot of KPIs around awareness and consideration. And then the measurement plan is about sales. And it doesn't really align, right? And then vice versa. So we really try to align measurement plans first and foremost. But then some of the levers, it really depends. There's so many directions we can go in. So one is platform. Are we reaching people in app? Because they're very different in the way that they behave in our app versus MWeb versus desktop. What are we doing from a content perspective? Should we be looking at cash back to create loyalty loops? Should we be looking at specific categories or specific convenience and shipping mechanisms, whether it's BOPUS or some other form that's kind of new in telling that story? And then we also look at then how do we amplify that content? So levers there. And one of the things that's really exciting about the amplification is that we were acquired by J2 Global in December. So now we're part of the Ziff Media Group. So Mashable, PC Mag, Offers, we're now one portfolio. So we can really start to kind of cross-sell and align tactics across content and deal seekers. So if someone wants to lean into more of the discovery phase, reviews, etc., we now have access to that, and we can kind of bridge the gap with an offer if needed. So tons of levers based on this acquisition that we're pretty excited to bring to market.
Yeah, and that brings up a good point, Magali, too, is people like to bucket somebody as a deal seeker or bucket somebody as only reading content. I think all of us being consumers know that we're not just a deal seeker, we're not just a content. Right. All of those different are really important aspects to our buyer journey.
Exactly. I think marketers, and we even do it, we label people to be in specific buckets, yet no one really considers themselves in that bucket for the most part. They're just shoppers. And sometimes they're looking for a deal because it's out of reach financially, and sometimes they're not because they can afford it and they just want to go buy it and they don't want to deal with a coupon. And the same person could be a deal seeker one day and not the next.
Right. Great. Thank you for that. And Lauren, just a couple questions for you. For those who might be unfamiliar with skim links, can you elaborate a little bit on where skim links fits into the buyer funnel in terms of what funnel we'll say in terms of the partner or publisher types you work with?
Sure. So we're actually invisible in the funnel, which is the value proposition of us. So we're what we call a network aggregator. So we sit across all of the affiliate networks, PartnerEyes included, who's a very good partner of ours. And we work with over 50 affiliate networks globally. So US, Europe, Canada, and APAC. And we give publishers the opportunity to basically unlock the entire world of affiliate marketing through a single platform. So they come to us to get access to 50,000 merchants and be able to link automatically to any retailer that they want. And then on the merchant side, they work through us to be able to get access to our most premium editorial publishers. So our claim to fame is that we work with basically the ComScore top 200, the most premium editorial publishers, including people like Camilla Cho and Strategist, but also, Condé Nast and Hearst and Refinery 29 and Yahoo and all the household names. So we provide a really great service to allow marketers to connect with publishers and then create any kind of partnership they want, from straight affiliate partnerships to flat fee deals to CPC monetization, so that they can maximize their footprint in the most premium fashion. But consumers have no idea that we are in the mix.
Right. So similar to a question that I asked Alexis, and you had just mentioned some of the great partners that you guys work with. Did you see any COVID impact on the partner types joining or working with your platform?
Yeah, I mean, we saw a tremendous lift in categories that never had affiliate programs before. So certainly like online education was huge last year. Online fitness was huge last year. Typically retail has always been our #1 category, followed probably by beauty. Those two categories took a back seat. Certainly, as Camilla said, they're coming back now. But we saw a big shift from premium luxury fashion to athleisure, right? So there were some retailers who did really well. There was a lot of retailers who didn't do really well. But certainly tons of new categories that came online. As Camilla said, food services were huge last year, and home office and home furnishings was tremendous. So there was a ton of new categories and a lot of new publishers who came online too. A lot of publishers, particularly in the news-based space, who from an editorial strategy were covering COVID 9 to 5, but that's not a good way to monetize display. A lot of advertisers didn't want to be associated with COVID content, so they had to figure out another way to monetize content. And so they created lifestyle content in a news-based environment where they could really monetize through the affiliate channel. So we saw entrants on both sides.
That's great, thank you. And one more question. When considering omni-channel opportunities, what channels does Skimlink support for brands that might be looking for non-traditional promotion?
Sure. So like Retail Me Not, we were also acquired last year. So we were acquired by a company called Connexity, and Connexity operates in the search space through CPC budgets. So we've been able to now monetize in both sides. So for publishers who are looking to really monetize content in all forms, we can offer CPC budgets that are not traditionally available in the affiliate channel. And we also are allowing publishers to create flat fee deals and more, deeper partnership deals with marketers. So, as Camilla said, having deep partnerships with retailers is really important to publishers. So being able to say, especially for new brands that maybe they haven't linked to before and they're going to take a chance on and dedicate editorial resources against, pay us upfront for our content creation, and then we'll also see how it converts and build a bigger partnership from there. But at least they have some sort of comfort on having upfront payment for the commitment in editorial resources that they're going to give to a merchant. And so that's become a much more important space, and a lot more entrants to the flat fee space who are participating in that.
Thank you. And I really wanted to thank everybody. Just take a moment to thank every one of you again for not only answering the questions, but really giving everyone a deeper level of insight into how you can help with the partnerships channel, sharing your expertise, and for joining me today. So have a great day, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.